Hi peeps, welcome to another Feedback Friday. Today I close my Goodreads nominees prediction series and I'll be recommending, reviewing, and talking about children's books that I hope will make to that list. Hello! Just if you don't know what my series is like, I'll link the playlist right here. But basically, I'm just having fun trying to guess which books will make as Goodreads 2021 Awards nominees in some categories, mainly horror, mystery, and thriller. But I also have a YA episode, a miscellaneous episode, and I'm closing it with children's books category this week. Because I mentioned before, but it's really hard to talk about these books without, ruining the plot. So just know that I'll be doing a review and there will be spoilers. Hear me out. I know you might not read children's books, but if you do have children in your life, whether is it for work, in real life, you know children, you give children, give this video a chance and just watch it, because I'm very passionate about literacy, including children, and fostering the love of learning and reading. And I also always try to have, both in my home library and my work library, books that are meaningful, inclusive, and diverse. So if you are interested in that, just give this video a chance. I don't have many books, but these are all books released this year. Therefore, I think they should make the nominee list for children's books. First one I have, Dumplings for Lily by Melissa Iway. And first of all, this is such a talented author. She is Asian. This is I think most of these books, with the exception of one, is own voice. So Melissa Iway is the author. She wrote and illustrated this book. And in it, we have Lily that lives in apartment buildings, and she wants to make dumplings with her grandma, but then she doesn't have this ingredient. So she goes ask one of the neighbors, and then the neighbor gives her the ingredient and then tries to make a dumpling from the culture, but she doesn't have an ingredient. So this goes on and forth, and then what you have is many women helping each other, and they all make different dumplings from the culture, and they have dinner together in the building patio sharing this. This is a book that teaches children about community, about multiculturalism, about how cultures might be so different, but some of the core values and some things that are dear to us in our culture are also shared, even if a little different in other cultures. So it's more about the, how beautiful it is to have this community where people are different from you and you learn from them and they learn from you. I love this book. Not only it treats diversity with such respect and care, you also get a dumpling recipe at the end. And it's beautiful. All these books also, in my opinion, have beautiful illustrations. And spoiler alert, I gave them all 5 stars. The Doll, and I'm sorry if I'm not saying this name right, but is written by Nung and Trent Davis, and the illustrator is Ravi Puth. I'll try not to cry talking about this book. This book was such a gift. It's Trent Davis basically gifting us her true story. So Trent Davis first got her life affected by tragedy. She was a refugee. She went through many things in her life at a very young age until Canada welcomed them, and she landed here as a refugee. She was here at the airport, and this girl gave her a doll. Trent Davis carried that doll through her whole life because it reminded her of kindness of strangers and of hope, and how everything, it represented to her that everything was going to be okay. And I think never in her life she had received such kindness of someone who didn't know her. This doll represents not only kindness, but empathy and togetherness. And as this book goes on, we follow her through her life's journey. She became very successful. She's happy now. She became a doctor. And then one day she's watching TV and she sees all the horrific things that are happening in Syria. And she decides to pay it forward. She goes to the airport on a day that she knows some families are landing. And she gives this Syrian refugee a doll. Sorry, I don't know why I'm crying. It's because it's such a touching story, and I'm very passionate about children. I don't want children to suffer, and children do suffer. We all did our part and took care of them. They will be okay, and they'll become beautiful people. And the fact that this really happened is so touching, but it is beautiful. The illustration is stunning. This story does tug at my heartstrings. It is like it doesn't get more own voice than that, because not only is she talking about a culture that she knows, she's talking about her own story. And fun fact, this doll is in a museum in Halifax to this day. So if you're around the area, go check it out. And one of the things that I thought it was like really brilliant in the story, and it really tells you that the doll obviously is an analogy for what we can do for each other, is the fact that the illustrator made a beautiful choice of having the same doll that was gifted to Trent Davis be the one that was gifted to the Syrian girl. So you can see, really, it's about pay it forward. And if you haven't done it, please always pay it forward. Take care of the others. And if there's one core value you should teach your children, in my opinion, this should be it: empathy. Moving on for another one that might make me cry too. Another own voice book, and this is about a neurodiverse child who has ADHD. It's called ADHD and Me. It's written by Chelsea Radojcic, illustrated by Leonie Cheatham. First of all, I want to take a moment and talk about the aesthetic of the book. It's so bright, it's cool, so colorful. It was like beautiful. It's a book that, you know, it talks about sad things, but it makes you happy just looking at it. The choice of colors and illustration and words was amazing. Second of all, like I said, it was own voice. I started crying from the dedication. The author said, "For my mom, who helped me when times were rough and believed me when others didn't." So in this book, we follow 80-year-old Mallory as she learns to express herself with the help of her art teacher and the gentle guidance of her mom. And I swear, I am a mom of a neurodiverse child. My son does have ADHD, and the school systems here are horrible. From grade 1, he was labeled that kid, and his self-esteem has suffered so much. There have been times when even before he couldn't speak, like his grade 1 teacher was horrible and mean. Like, she traumatized him. He's still traumatized to this day. And there was a point where he was doing everything he could to be kicked out of school because he didn't want to go back there, and he saw school as the place that makes him feel bad about who he is and a place of unhappiness. And like at one point, he didn't know what he was saying, but he just said, "Oh, maybe I should just throw myself in front of a bus." He didn't know that would end his life. He just wanted to break his leg so he wouldn't have to go to school anymore. And that broke my heart. And I fought tooth and nail for him in the school. And his mental health is of the importance to me. And that's the reason why I've done online learning, because it's an option in my province last year. And I'm doing it this year as well. He's a beautiful, gifted child. He's so smart. But all some people see is his high energy. So as I was reading this book and following Mallory, I was literally reading about my child and how those things affected him. And I was like so touched. It was a hard read. It's a short read, but it was a super hard read. But what this book did was to show how with the right people in their life, we can turn that into a beautiful gift and we can help a child flower. That's why I got into early childhood education, actually, is because I wanted to protect each child and empower their parents to fight for them when they go to the school system, because life can be hard there. And this book just really, it's not that hard for you to help a child reach their potential. And as parents and as educators, we really need to do this. And I wish this book was available when he was a bit younger, because this is a very empowering book. I think that if you know any neurodiverse child in your life, especially if they have ADHD and they are in the school system, you should give this book, because this book is going to tell them they are special, they are amazing, and they shouldn't let anyone put them down. Like, thank you, Chelsea. Thank you. Like, I'm sorry, I'll just pretend the author is actually going to see this, but thank you for writing a book that is so beautiful, so empowering. Thank you for sharing with us your story and letting us know that you are okay. And I'm so happy that you had great people in your life that enabled you to see how special you were. And I'm happy that you decided to share this with others. I want this book to be on the list. This book has to be on the list. Like, read this book and rate. Let's make this book win. Like, honestly, it is personal, but it is also beautiful. And I think that every educator should read this. It will teach them how to be more empathetic and what a difference it can make in either turning a child's life hell or making them extremely well-adjusted. Just saying. Oh, man, this was a long rant. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. I honestly do love this book so much. I think that every classroom should have it. And if not it, I hope that every educator that is watching here, I'm inviting you to think about your practice and reflect if you're really inclusive. If there's anything that you can do more, and if there's any opportunity for you, I highly recommend the focus of your professional development, inclusivity, and sensitivity. Your children will thank you. Next, I have Isaac is in the Corners by Joanna Ho, illustrated by Dong Ho. And in it is a beautiful story about a young Asian girl that starts to compare the way her eyes look, how it's different than most people in their classrooms. But then with the help of her mother and grandmother, she realizes how beautiful her eyes are. First of all, they are the same as her mom and her grandmom. They all kiss in the corners. They glow like warm tea. They crinkle like crescent moons. And it tells the stories of their past and the hope for the future. So I think this is a really empowering book that invites children, especially those of Asian descent, to realize how beautiful they are. Next, I have Lockdown Here by Linda Steinbook. And I think this is a very important book and very current book, because in it, we followed Siona. First of all, he's cheeky. She's so funny, so smart. She comes up with like the best solutions. We see how she's handling and processing the life during this pandemic. So we see very real things. There's talk about lockdown and how she can't see her grandmother, so they Zoom. And then they are in a lockdown, and then Siona starts worrying for her mom, who's a hairdresser, because obviously you can't work when you need to be 6 feet apart from people. So she comes up with this great solution, like a 1 to 6 steps of how her mom can work. So you see how the pandemic affects us all and the hopes we have for things to go away, and all through the eyes of a child. And I highly recommend this book because I'm suffering with the pandemic and the isolation. Children are suffering as well, but they don't have the ability to label exactly what this is. So you might see your child be sadder, act out of character, explode as the tiniest things. And all of this could be just because they're feeling anxious about a pandemic. And it's not really easy to approach them because we're going to be using language that they may not quite understand. So having a book like this and reading with them, they will be able to see themselves through Siona's eyes and hopefully externalize some of the bad feelings they might be feeling about our current situation. So I think this is an amazing book, beautiful illustrated. It's by a debut novel. It's funny, it's important, it's poignant, and I highly recommend it, and I hope it makes it to the list. And so next I have Mindful Mr. Sloth by Katie Hudson. She had a book that I loved, A Loud Winter's Nap, and now she's releasing this, which is about Sasha, this little girl who's always on the go. She goes, never stops, never enjoys anything. It's from one thing to the next. Then she meets Mr. Sloth, who just tells her to take it easy, to be who she is, but to try to be more in the present. So she actually enjoys the thing she's doing, and that it's okay. She can do the same thing she wants to do at a slower pace, and she's going to have more fun. It's a book that helps children understand the concept of mindfulness, especially on this age. It's really important, I feel, to share with a child a book that tells them it's important to practice self-care and to be mindful, because these things have a positive effect on your mental health overall, right? Next, I have Shh, the Baby's Asleep by Janae Brown Wood. We have been there every time. If you have ever been around a baby, the soon a baby falls asleep, everybody's like, shh, don't move, don't breathe, you're gonna wake up the baby. And then we have this multi-generational family living in the same house. Finally, the baby is asleep. But then every single member that doesn't know that starts making noise. The illustrator was Elisa Mbura, and it complemented the story so perfectly. They were bright, they were cheeky, they were full of sense of humor. They were inclusive and diverse. This book, it is funny, like it represents multi-generational families that live together and how they live in harmony. And the last one I have is Lola Sleeps Over, which was written by Anna McQueen and Rosalind Birdshaw. I think this is my only not own voice book in this list. It shares the story of Lola. The illustration is diverse and inclusive and representative. But Lola is this little girl. She lives with mom and dad, and she has never had a sleepover in her whole life. But they are very close with, their uncle and aunt and cousin. So she goes to her first sleepover. It's like, I'm Lola, seriously. She starts packing her bag. She doesn't know what she's going to need. So instead of having like a weekend bag, she has like a full-on suitcase packed. And she has so much fun going to the cousin, and she has all, like movie night and popcorn, eating junk, sleeping with your cousin, talking to you, sleepover, and then you wake up in the morning. And it was just a fun story. And I think everyone can relate to that. I mean, I'm a grown-up and I love sleepovers. I just had one last weekend with my friend. I mean, who doesn't? And Lola is a girl after my own heart. I don't pack light to save my life. I should learn because I never use everything I pack, but I don't. And this is just such like a fun book that it is something, again, I'm looking for inclusive books, I also think about things that children can relate and experience that can relate, so they can see that represented in the page. So every child loves their first sleepover, something that sometimes they will remember forever. So I loved having this in a book, but that's what I had. So this is my recommendation for books you should have in your classroom, in your house, or gift the children in your life. They're all books that were released this year, so I hope they make it to the Goodreads 2021 Awards nominees list, or whatever you say that, in whatever order. It's remaining right now. Good timing. I hope you enjoyed it. See you back on Monday with my regular scheduled programming, and have a great weekend, you guys. Until next time, be the hummingbird.